The text from my father arrived at 6:12 in the morning, while my dress whites were still hanging in the hotel closet. Please do not wear the uniform today. Please do not wear the uniform today. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed in Charleston and stared at the screen until the words blurred. 34 years in the United States Navy, 4 stars on my shoulders. Ships, storms, war rooms, casualty calls, and nights when the only thing between living sailors and a folded flag was my voice on a secure line, and my father still thought the most useful thing I could do for the family was disappear. A second message followed. This is Grace's wedding. Nobody cares about your Navy career. Do not make everything about you. I looked across the room at the white jacket hanging in the plastic garment bag. Then I looked at the small silver case on the desk that held my ribbons. Afghanistan, Somalia, the Gulf, classified places that never made newspapers. Places where boys became men too fast and commanders learned grief has a sound you can hear even over rotor blades. My thumb hovered over the reply box. For a moment, I almost typed, I understand. Make yourself smaller, soften the achievement, protect the beautiful daughter's moment. Do not make Dad uncomfortable. Do not remind him that the daughter he dismissed became an officer men stand for. Instead, I set the phone face down. Then I put on the uniform. My name is Admiral Eleanor Ward. My family calls me Nell, when they remember to call me at all. The Navy calls me ma'am. And at my sister's wedding, 200 Navy SEALs called the room to attention before my father could finish pretending I was nothing. But before that moment, before the chairs scraped back and my father's face emptied of color, there was a lifetime of smaller humiliations no one else thought counted. That is the cruel thing about being diminished by your own family. They happen in kitchens, at birthday dinners, in introductions where your life's work is folded into something harmless. This is Eleanor, my father would say at neighborhood barbecues. She works for the government. I commanded fleets, briefed presidents, signed orders that moved thousands across oceans, and stood in command centers while satellite feeds painted the world in fire and threat. But to my father, Harold Ward, I worked for the government. My sister Grace, though, was easy for him to love in public. Grace was beautiful in the way Southern wedding magazines promise beauty should be. Soft voice, perfect hair, and a laugh that made people lean closer. She taught preschool, baked lemon cakes for church auctions, and remembered birthdays. She married the kind of man my father understood, Philip Kavanaugh, a clean-cut attorney from an old Charleston family. Grace was sunlight. I was weather. When I was 17, I told him I wanted to apply to the Naval Academy. He laughed so hard he spilled coffee on the Sunday paper. Women don't belong on warships, he said. My mother, Margaret, looked down at her plate. Grace, who was 12 then, asked if I would have to cut my hair. My father said, "She won't get in." I got in. He did not come to induction day. He said the drive was too long. Annapolis was 8 hours away. He drove 9 hours the next month to watch Grace stand in the second row of a ballet competition. Some parents cross states for the child who reflects them and refuse to cross a room for the child who challenges them. At the academy, I learned to sleep standing up, eat in 7 minutes, and keep my face still when men assumed I was lost. Later, I learned command, damage control, logistics, casualty notification, and the loneliness of being the first woman in rooms where men thought history belonged to them. I did not become hard. Hardness is brittle. I became disciplined. There is a difference. Discipline lets you carry pain without spilling it on others. It also lets you carry pain too long. By the time I made captain, my father had perfected his erasure. At a Christmas party, he introduced me as our traveler. At my promotion to Rear Admiral, he sent $20 and wrote, "Hope this means you can slow down soon." When a newspaper ran my Walter Reed photo, my mother clipped it. My father never mentioned it. If I appeared on television, he'd change the channel. If someone at church asked about me, he said, "She's busy." Busy. Busy at sea, busy with war, busy avoiding a normal life, busy failing to become the daughter he wanted. And Grace lived comfortably inside the story where I had chosen ambition over family and deserved whatever loneliness followed. She was not loudly cruel. She was gentle while benefiting from the lie. When she called about the wedding, her voice was careful. "Nell, I really want you there. I'll be there. And you'll be happy for me?" I closed my eyes. Yes, Grace. I just don't want anything to feel intense. There it was. My existence. Summarized. Intense. "Are you asking me not to wear uniform?" A long pause. "Dad thinks it might draw attention." "And what do you think?" She exhaled. "I think you look beautiful in it. I also think I don't want to fight." She wanted peace so badly she often confused it with everyone else's silence. A military dress uniform is not a costume or decoration. It is a record. Every ribbon is a name. Every medal is a night someone did not sleep. I wore it because Philip's father, Thomas Cavanaugh, had asked me to. He was not just a wealthy Charleston man with a perfect smile. He was a former defense official, a man who had been in rooms where my decisions mattered. 3 weeks before the wedding, he called me personally. "Admiral Ward," he said, "many Navy people will attend. Some served under commands you touched. I hope you will come as yourself." As yourself? I had not realized how badly I needed to hear them. The wedding was held in an old waterfront hall facing the harbor. White roses climbed the railings. The air smelled of salt, gardenias, and money. I arrived 20 minutes before the ceremony. The second I stepped inside, my father saw the uniform. His jaw tightened. My mother's eyes filled immediately, which told me she had known I would wear it and feared what would follow. Grace was upstairs with the bridesmaids. My father crossed the foyer so fast 2 guests moved out of his way. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Attending my sister's wedding? Do not be clever. I'm not. I told you not to wear that. I received your message and ignored it." "Yes." His face reddened. "This is exactly what I mean. You cannot stand not being the center of attention." For a moment, I was 17 again, holding an academy brochure while he laughed. "I am not here to be the center of attention." "Then why dress like a recruiting poster?" I looked down at the uniform, the white jacket, the gold stripes, the stars, the ribbons arranged with the precision grief teaches. This is what I wear to formal military occasions. This is a wedding. With 200 naval officers and special operators on the guest list. His eyes flicked. He had not known that. Of course he had not. My father had spent so many years refusing to ask about my world that he forgot it existed without him. He stepped closer. "Listen to me. Grace gets one day. One. You have had enough. Enough." The word almost made me laugh. Enough deployments, commands, funerals, and rooms where I had to prove I deserved the chair before I could work. But never enough for him to call me important. I said quietly, I am not competing with Grace. You always were. The honesty startled both of us. There it was. Not in my mouth. In his. I looked at him for a long moment. No, Dad. You made it a competition and punished me for winning a race I never entered. His hand tightened around the program. Go upstairs, he said to me. Change, or sit in the back where you won't be noticed. A man's voice behind him said, that would be difficult. We turned. Thomas Cavanaugh stood a few feet away in a charcoal suit. His expression calm, his eyes not. Admiral Ward is seated in the front row, he said. My father forced a smile. Thomas, this is a family matter. Thomas did not smile back. No, it is a respect matter. The foyer quieted. People are drawn to conflict like veins to wind. My father lowered his voice. With all due respect, you do not know my daughter. Thomas looked at me, then back at him. I know her record. The words landed cleanly, not loud, not dramatic, but final. My father's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Thomas stepped aside. Admiral, may I escort you in? I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. That is what people misunderstand about public validation. They imagine you feel triumphant. Often, you just feel the weight of every private year it took to get there. I walked into the ballroom beside Thomas Cavanaugh. At first, only a few people noticed. A retired captain near the aisle straightened. Then a man at table 6 stood. Then another. Chairs scraped. Conversation stopped. A voice from the back of the room rang out with the force of command. Admiral on deck. 200 Navy SEALs rose to their feet, not loosely, not politely. As one body, spines straight, hands sharp, eyes forward. The sound rolled through the ballroom like thunder under the floorboards. Every civilian froze. My father turned slowly, as if his body could not process what his ears had heard. 200 men who had jumped into black water, breached doors in unnamed cities, and carried wounded brothers through dust and fire stood for me in absolute silence. I did not ask for it. At the front of the room, Grace appeared at the top of the staircase in her wedding gown. For one awful second, I thought she would hate me, but she did not look angry. She looked stunned, then afraid. Not of me, but of the size of the truth she had been trained not to see. I returned the salute. Carry on, I said. The room did not fully recover. People whispered behind programs. A bridesmaid stared as if I had arrived from another country. My father still had not moved. Thomas leaned slightly toward him and said, low enough that only those near us heard, Harold, your daughter is one of the most respected operational leaders this country has produced in 20 years. My father whispered, why didn't she ever tell us? I turned to him. My voice surprised me by staying gentle. You never wanted to know. That hurt him. Good. Not because I wanted revenge, because some truths are supposed to hurt when they finally land. The ceremony began. Grace walked down the aisle on our father's arm, and for a moment, all the noise inside me went quiet. She was beautiful. My little sister, the girl who slept against my shoulder during storms, the girl I taught to ride a bike, the girl who survived our house by being soft where I survived by becoming precise. I loved her. Family wounds do not erase love. They complicate it. Sometimes they make love feel like carrying glass in your hands. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, morally. A man who spent 30 years standing over me had just discovered the room was taller than he was. A lieutenant commander approached first. "Ma'am," he said, voice thick. "You don't remember me. Sam Mercer, Helmand, 2011. I did remember him. Burned hand, broken collarbone, refused evacuation until younger sailors were loaded first. Your daughter was born in March," I said. His face changed. "Yes, ma'am. Still drawing whales? She's applying to Annapolis." I smiled. "Tell her to call my office." My father heard that. So did Grace. Then came Master Chief Aaron Vale, walking with a cane and still looking like he could tear a steel door off its hinges. He stopped before me. "Admiral, Master Chief." He shook his head. "Red River." The words passed between us like a folded flag. Red River was not on my public biography. A night operation, bad intelligence, weather turning ugly. A decision no commander wants and every commander fears. We lost 7. We saved 23. Master Chief Vale had been one of the 23. He leaned close. "You stayed on comms, even when the bird went down?" I remember. "You told me to keep my men breathing." "You did." His jaw tightened. "My grandson is 5 now because I came home. That is what you did." I could feel the room listening. I hated it and needed it at the same time. My father stood near the bar with a glass untouched in his hand. For years, he had claimed my career was a distraction from family. Now family heard from strangers who went home to their children because of that career. Then a tall man in a dark suit approached with his wife. He looked familiar, the way some scars are familiar. "Admiral Ward," he said. "Ramon Hayes." I went still. Ramon had been a young intelligence officer in Kabul when I overruled a strike package that would have killed his source and 19 civilians in a clinic. That decision almost ended my career. Ramon held out his hand. "I have wanted to thank you for 12 years. You owe me nothing?" His wife touched his arm. "He named our son after you." I blinked. He smiled. "Elliot, close as we could get." My father looked away. That was when I understood something. He could survive my rank if it remained abstract. Stars, titles, uniform. But gratitude was harder to dismiss. Gratitude had faces, children, grandchildren. Lives branched forward because I had stood in difficult rooms and made difficult calls. Grace came to me halfway through the reception. She held a glass of champagne. "Nell." "Grace." Her eyes were wet. "I didn't know." I wanted to say. "You could have." But it was her wedding day. And truth, if thrown like a knife, becomes just another weapon. So I said, "I know." She flinched anyway. "I think part of me didn't want to." That was braver. I looked at her. She swallowed. "Because if you were important, then maybe Dad was wrong. And if Dad was wrong about you, maybe he was wrong about a lot of things." Philip watched from across the room, concerned, but giving her space. "Grace," I said, "my life was never an accusation against yours." She started crying then. Not dramatically, just tears slipping through careful makeup. "I thought you judged me. I envied you." She stared. "You envied me? You knew how to be loved at home." Her hand rose to her mouth. "And I envied you," she whispered. "Because you knew how to leave?" There it was. The whole childhood in 2 sentences. I looked at my sister in her perfect dress and realized neither of us had escaped cleanly. She had been rewarded for staying small. I had been punished for growing. Both are cages. Before I could answer, Our mother appeared beside us. Margaret Ward was 72, elegant, nervous, and skilled at smoothing tablecloths while lives caught fire around her. She held a folded envelope. "Nell," she said. My mother pressed the envelope into my palm. "What is this?" Her lips trembled. "Articles." I opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, old ones, yellowed, folded carefully. My promotion to captain, my Senate confirmation, a photo of me aboard the USS Resolute, a typhoon evacuation article, a Navy Times profile my hometown paper had republished. I looked at my mother. She began crying before I spoke. "I kept them," she said. "All of them." My chest hurt. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" She looked toward my father, then back at me. I was afraid of making things worse. I closed the envelope. For a moment, the little girl inside me wanted to be cruel. But my mother looked so fragile with 30 years of secret pride in an envelope that I could not turn her into another battlefield. So I said, "You did make things worse?" She nodded as if she had expected the sentence and accepted it. "I know, but you kept them." "Yes." "Why?" She wiped her face. "Because I was proud, even when I was a coward." That sentence stayed with me. Pride is not protection. Love is not courage. But sometimes the first honest sentence is the first plank of a bridge. I placed the envelope inside my jacket. "Thank you for keeping them." Near sunset, I slipped outside to the dock behind the venue. Charleston Harbor moved in silver evening light. The air smelled of salt and engine oil. Behind me, music pulsed through the walls. I needed quiet. Command teaches you how to stand in noise. I heard footsteps. I knew they were my father's before he spoke. "Nell." I kept my eyes on the water. "Dad." He stopped beside me but did not come too close. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then he asked, "Why didn't you ever tell us you mattered that much?" I laughed. It came out harder than I intended. I sent articles, invitations, programs, photos. I called after promotions. I came home when I could. You changed the subject every time. He stared at the harbor. "I suppose I did." "No. You chose to." His jaw worked. The silence stretched. Then he said, "In 1967, I was supposed to go to Vietnam." I turned. He had never told me that. My draft number came up. I was healthy, strong. Your grandfather knew a state senator. They found a way. I waited. His voice roughened. Tommy Walker went instead. You don't know that name? No. He lived 2 streets over. We played baseball together. He was 19. He came home in a box before Christmas. I told myself I was lucky, then smart, then that men who went were fools. I said it until I almost believed it. I could hear the wedding music through the wall. A father-daughter dance. Maybe. Something soft that belonged to another family. When you wanted the academy, he continued, I saw something I had spent my life avoiding. Courage in my own house. In my daughter. I hated you for making my cowardice visible. There it was. Not that he thought my service was worthless. He feared it meant his life was. He looked at me then. If I made your career small, maybe I wouldn't feel so small standing next to it. I said nothing. What do you say when the person who wounded you finally hands you the knife? He began to cry, not loudly. Harold Ward did not know how to cry loudly. His face simply folded. I am sorry, he said. I know that is too small. It is. He nodded. I know. The daughter in me wanted to reach for him. The Admiral understood consequences. The woman in me was tired of comforting people who finally discovered what they had done. So I let him cry. After a while, I said, "You missed my life?" He closed his eyes. I know. You missed the hard parts and the beautiful parts, the marriage ending, the miscarriage, the funerals, the promotions. You missed all of it because knowing me would have required knowing yourself. He covered his mouth with one hand. I had never said the word miscarriage to him. I almost had years ago. I had been 39, deployed, bleeding in a military hospital in Germany, while a nurse held my hand and a doctor spoke too gently for memory to survive. Before I could speak, he said, "This isn't a good time. Grace is upset about the bakery." So I said, "It can wait." And I never told him. On that dock, decades later, his knees nearly buckled. "Nell," he whispered. "No," I said. "Don't make me comfort you for finding out." "I am sorry," he said again. "I believe you." He looked at me with sudden hope. "But belief is not repair," I said. "It is only the place repair can begin." The hope did not vanish. It changed into something more honest, grief. "I don't know how," he said. "That has never stopped you from judging me." Then I softened my voice. "You start by asking, not defending, not explaining, asking. And when I answer, you listen until I am done." He nodded. "What do I ask?" I looked back at the harbor. "Ask me what Red River was." He swallowed. "What was Red River?" So I told him. Not the classified parts, not the coordinates, not the names I still could not say in public, but enough. I told him about the weather turning, the downed aircraft, the men trapped in a ravine while the world narrowed to fuel, time, and probability. I told him about the 7 we lost. I told him about the 23 who came home. I told him about Vale's voice breaking over comms and the decision I still reviewed in my sleep. My father listened. When I finished, the sun was gone. The harbor lights trembled on the water. He said, "Thank you for telling me." It was awkward, insufficient. But it was the first right thing he had said to me without being corrected into it. We went back inside separately. That mattered. Some people imagine reconciliation as an embrace. Sometimes, reconciliation is not walking through the same door pretending nothing happened. Grace found me near the cake table later. "Dad looks terrible," she said. "He should..." She nodded. "Are you okay?" "No." She nodded again. "Me neither." For once, we did not pretend. Then she surprised me. She took the microphone from the band leader. Grace's hands shook, but she kept speaking. "I know weddings are about the bride and groom," she said. "But today I learned something about my family I should have known long ago." My stomach tightened. She looked at me. My sister, Admiral Eleanor Ward, spent her life serving this country. I spent years thinking her strength made her distant. Now I think I was afraid of what it cost her. The room was silent. Grace's voice broke. "Nell, I am sorry I let people make you smaller so I could feel safe being loved. I could not move. The seals did not stand this time. They did not need to. The room already understood." Grace lifted her glass. "To my sister, not for outranking anyone, for surviving us and still coming today." That broke me. Across the room, my father lowered his head. My mother cried openly, Philip put an arm around Grace with the gentleness of a man learning marriage means inheriting joy and unfinished pain. The rest of the evening unfolded strangely. People danced. Cake was cut. Old officers told stories softened enough for civilians. My father did not try to explain himself to anyone. That was new. My mother held my hand under the table like I was still a girl. That was new too. Grace and I danced once, laughing awkwardly because neither of us knew who should lead. For a few minutes, we were not the strong one and the sweet one. We were just sisters. But healing is not erasure. It is the first honest page after a long false book. A month after the wedding, my father called. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. He did not ask if I was busy. He said, "Tell me about your day." I looked at the phone. Such a small sentence. Such a late sentence. But pointed in the right direction. So I told him a little. But I told him about a meeting. A sailor retiring after 29 years. A storm moving up the Atlantic. He listened. When he started to interrupt, he stopped himself. I heard the breath where the old habit died. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time. On the wall were photos from ships, commands, ports, ceremonies, and one faded picture of a young midshipman at Annapolis standing too straight because she was terrified. I wanted to tell her something. Not that her father would one day understand. That might have been too much hope. I wanted to tell her she would survive even if he did not. That one day, 200 warriors would stand because they knew what her family refused to know. That one day, her sister would raise a glass and say she was sorry. That one day, she would understand that a uniform can hold honor, but it cannot hold all of a person. And that a woman's worth does not become real only when a room rises for it. It was real in the kitchen when her father laughed. Real at the academy when she refused to quit. Real in command centers. Real in hospital rooms. Real in grief. Real in every decision made with shaking hands and a steady voice. Vindication sounds like proving something to others. What happened in Charleston was quieter and harder. It was the moment I stopped asking the blind to certify the sunrise. My name is Admiral Eleanor Ward. My father once asked me not to wear my uniform because nobody cared about my Navy career. Then 200 SEALs stood when I entered the room. But that was not the victory. The victory was walking in already knowing I belonged. Before they stood, before my father understood, before my sister apologized, before anyone gave me permission, I belonged. And sometimes final justice is not making the people who hurt you bow. Sometimes it is standing straight long enough for them to see they were never tall enough to look down on you.